Right, thanks everybody for coming out. Welcome to Malvern's Multiverse. And tonight's guest is Nick Courtright. All right, Nick. Yeah, welcome to Malvern's. We're really excited, to have, I say we, Malvern Books. We're really excited to have Nick here and to chat with us and stuff. Nick's somebody I've known for quite a while. I can give a little intro. You guys probably know Nick better than I do, but Nick is the author of Let There Be Light, and called A Continual Surprise and Revelation by Naomi Shihab Nye. That's impressive. She's tough. And Punchline, a National Poetry Series finalist. He's co-executive editor and book designer for Goldweight Press, and the founder and executive editor of Atmosphere Press. Nick's poetry has appeared in many literary journals, including the Southern Review, Kenyon Review Online, Boston Review, and the Iowa Review. And essays and prose have been published by such places as the Huffington Post, the Best American Poetry, Gothamist, and Spin Magazine. Nick is currently at UT, if he's not busy enough doing that, studying, get this, the epistemological implications of Walt Whitman's When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. So Nick's a busy guy, and he does a lot of stuff. It's just amazing. I'm so glad he found time to chat with me.
Twisted my arm.
Yeah, it did. It's just like, how do you get a poet to read at your story? You ask. Nick, let's just start get to know you a little bit. I'm just always curious, how did you come about being exposed to poetry, to reading it, and then eventually writing it and stuff?
Okay, that's weird. Going back in time. I always thought poetry was for squares, honestly. When I was young, I always started writing. I wrote even when I was in elementary school. I would sometimes stay in on recess with my little fourth grade girlfriend. And we'd write stories. And I always just wrote stories and was just always interested in narrative, right? And then I got to college and somehow just started leaning more towards the poetry thing. I started falling away from narrative a little bit, just sort of realizing the limitation of having to work within character and plot, because they just felt like an intermediary to the sort of dissemination of ideas that felt inefficient, I guess. You could get ideas out more quickly if you don't have to, say a bunch of other stuff. So that's sort of how I started to find poetry. But of course, all my initial poetry was just about heartbreak and girls I loved and stupid crap like that, It's deeply embarrassing to go back and read that, but
Bonfire stuff.
But it's good.
Yeah. When you made the shift, were you reading a lot of poetry when you made that, and when you started writing?
Not a ton. I think, contrary to my bio, I think some of my motivations were based out of laziness.
Okay.
Right? Because writing a work of fiction is a pain in the ass.
Oh.
Right? It takes a long time. You have to go through so many rounds of editorial and everything. With poems, sometimes, you can just have that spark of insight. You can end up dropping something down and it ends up working right away. William Carlos Williams' entire career, right?
After he got done with the keys and all that kind of stuff that he had to burn. But
So I think it is interesting, the relationship between those things. So I wasn't reading a ton of poetry at that point. I remember a professor I had in my undergrad just being here's an anthology of poetry, you should read this, and me being LOL. I don't want to do that work.
That was a nice way to put it.
But then eventually started actually reading and becoming invested. And now obviously it's sort of hard not to eventually start learning things when you have no choice for many years on it. So.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you that way. So when when you think of poetry in general, I like to think of this. What do you've given us a little bit of an idea, but when you think of poetry, what do you generally think it is, and what do you think it does? And then, moving on from that, what do you think your poetry is, and what do you want it to do?
Oh God, this is like a dissertation. Yeah, that's a tough one. So it's like the whole what is poetry question in a sense. And I think when I think about it, it's the attempt to find truth in really concise language, right? Mm-hmm. Minus all adornment, right? You get rid of everything else, and then it's what is this little tiny thing that you have there, and hopefully it accesses some aspect of truth in the world. So that's the sort of the idea of what I think poetry does well. When I read poems, a lot of times I'm drawn to the ones that are making me change my life. Making me think about the world, asking me to question things. I'm really steeped in the wisdom tradition of poetry. Mm-hmm. Everything from the Buddha to Bhagavad Gita to Ecclesiastes, a lot of the religious stuff, pan-religious stuff, I find to be very interesting. In terms of my own work, I think for the 2 books that I published, I was really trying to operate within that mode. Okay. Trying to find wisdom, trying to find truth, trying to understand the universe. Since then, I gave up on trying to understand how the world works, because it's just such a chaotic mess. Yeah. That I started just accessing. I was actually writing a note to Dean Young earlier today about this idea of wanting to almost at this point giving up on beauty, or putting beauty in language aside and just trying to access the ugly. Mm-hmm. In a sense. So bringing in more comedy, more absurdity, not necessarily trying to access the truth of the exalted mountain, but more sort of the truth of Jersey Shore.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And so you've written the 2 books, but you're running the presses and you're doing graduate work, and it's not a creative writing degree, right? And so are you working on any poetry, currently?
Just a little bit here and there, the act of generating content has definitely sort of taken a backseat to all of this other stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I still make stuff. I'll probably read a couple newish. Cool. I'll read some newish stuff. So you'll get to see that ugliness I was talking about.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. So we've mentioned a couple of times your presses. Can you tell me, a little, just basically a little bit about them, what their focus is, why there are 2 of them, and your role in both of them? Okay, awesome. So yeah, I was actually really wanting to talk about the presses because there are 2 different ones, and they have totally different sort of approaches. So Goldwake is actually, crazy enough, that's the press that published my books. Mm-hmm. It was run out of Boston, and then eventually the leadership wanted to move on and do something different. So myself and Kyle McCord, another author who were published with the press, he asked us if we'd be interested in taking an editorial role. So that was about 4 years ago, so we just ended up taking over, and now it's thriving ridiculously, because we switched to all genres. It was a poetry only press. Now it's all genres. We actually have an open reading period right now that goes for 1 more day. So if you've got a book, you should send it in so that it can be rejected, because that's how publishing works. But yeah, so we put out 2 books the first year. We put out 4 books last year. We're going to put out 4 or 5 this year. But it's all really high quality stuff. I feel incredibly fortunate even to have the opportunity to be associated with this thing, because we're just publishing the most ludicrously good stuff, and incredibly accomplished writers who've published in the most amazing places. The one book we do already have under contract for next year is
like sort of like an illustrated memoir written by an Iowa writer. And it's like really weird hybrid work. It's like not like anything that the press has ever done before. So that's like one press. Atmosphere is completely different.
Okay.
That is not a traditional literary press. That's sort of more of a like self-publishing proxy. So there are lots of people in the world, like normal people who aren't part of the MFA machine, who aren't part of the, like literary world. They're not trying to get tenure, stuff like that. They're just maybe like a 60-year-old who, who wrote this novel, and they don't know what to do next. And they're thinking of just like self-publishing it on Amazon, but they're trying to decide whether they want to try to get it published somewhere else. And then Atmosphere, what we do is try to give that person a sort of an alternative route, to like actually get, a good publishing experience with like editorial. So it's like publishing, like the book goes through editorial process, all the book design, all the distribution, everything. Obviously they pay for this.
Yeah.
Right, so that's like the difference.
But is it selective? You just don't take any?
Yeah, no. Oh my God, you should see some of the crap.
Oh.
Because they're like, oh, it's like a self-publishing proxy. So like, here is my like complete dumpster fire of a memoir that I wrote about myself tripping acid in the '60s, and I'll be like, you were doing that when you wrote this, so it's definitely still selective.
Okay.
And the books that I've put out through it are good. Like one of them that I like, the two ones that I've done recently, I'm really proud of, are both by like older fellows. Like one of them went to like Harvard and Yale in the 50s, and his book is like his life's wisdom, and it's smart stuff.
It's just that you know that the payback on something like that is going to be slim, if none, and so you need a little bit of financial assistance to do it.
Well, it's basically like, as the press, I don't take any of the proceeds.
Of course.
Yeah, so like
it's just production. And
yeah,
like that.
So with a traditional press, it's like you publish the book and then you sell a bunch of books and collect the money, and then you give like the writer royalties, right?
Right.
With this model, they pay up front for the service, but then there's no royalties contract.
Correct.
So they get 100% of whatever it sells.
That's a nice model. How many books do you have in the pipeline with that?
With that, I've got 2 more in the pipeline, and I put out maybe like 8 or so in the last like year and a half.
So you said with Goldway that you're at the very end of a open reading period. Is that the way you find most of your books for Goldway?
Yeah, for Goldway we just do one open reading.
It's one a year.
Yeah.
How long does it last?
2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, and we don't do like a lot of presses. They do like the contest fee, like charge $30 so that you can get a sad email from us. We just run a like.
Racket.
Yeah, it's a total racket. It's so like, it's just economically parasitic, and I think it takes advantage of writers, and I just think it's a sort of a twisted model, and it's inherently privileged. It privileges people who are well-to-do. So we just do a buy a book, get a free submission model. So.
And so you do this open reading period. You just not take submissions at all for the rest of the year, or if all of a sudden you see something like, it's like, oh my God, you get it in the mail.
Yeah. Well, we don't give them an address.
You don't give them an address.
Yeah. But if we like during the year, it's like obviously if we like found somebody where like we really love your work, we would engage that person in conversation.
Make sure that.
But yeah, like outside of that reading period, we don't take unsolicited, because otherwise
you just get it
would just be
24/7,
endless forever.
Yeah. And how about with Atmosphere?
It's continual.
It's continual.
Yeah.
And is both of these have information online, Facebook, social media, websites, all that kind of fun stuff?
Atmosphere, I don't really do much social media for that, because social media pains me terribly.
It does.
But with Goldwake, we have like a publicist and everything who like runs all that stuff for us. But yeah, there's websites for it all. The Atmosphere website's got like all the data on it.
Is Goldwig based here in Austin now? Do you base it here?
Well, my co-editor lives in Iowa.
Okay.
So, and our, one of our other people who helps us is based out of Ohio, and then somebody else is in New York. So that's the benefit of the modern era, is that
Sure
it can
is.
be really decentralized. So.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's wonderful. I just wanted to ask you. I don't want to, make you defend your dissertation, but it's a pretty heady thing, the epistemological implications of Walt Whitman and stuff like that. But is it, some people find it tremendously difficult to be creative, in a creative writing, poetry, or fiction sense, while you're doing some kind of tremendously analytical work like that. Do you have a hard time splitting those?
It's definitely sort of a weird relationship
Yeah.
between the two, because they're just totally different parts
Right.
of your brain.
Yeah.
So, but I still I find writing creatively just to be fun.
Yeah.
It's just a fun thing. I was working on some crazy thing the other day, which I'll read, and I was just like, oh yeah, writing poems is fun. I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
Right.
Because it's so easy, because it's doing the academic work is also fun.
Yeah.
It's weird. So many people, I think, they're like, oh, I really hate my PhD, and I'm like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
If you don't like it, because it's not like you get anything out of it,
That was going to be my final question.
It's no guarantee of any job. It's no guarantee of anything, So it's like,
You could
why?
always open a bookstore.
yeah, you could do that, but it's only do it if you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I do like that, and one thing that I really am studying a lot, because it's writing a dissertation on an 8-line poem. It's literally
Yeah.
an 8-line poem. That's completely insane.
Yes.
But one thing that I'm really interested in is the idea of the reader, right? Who has authority to assign meaning? So it's any text, anything that you ever encounter, because there's all this stuff. It's oh, the meaning is in there. That's what the poem means.
Yeah.
And I've always found that to be, or somebody as a teacher, because it's I obviously do that. So, there will be somebody puts forth an opinion and be no, that's not the right opinion. That's not the right interpretation
Right.
because of these reasons. And it's well, maybe there is legitimacy to that. So I'm really into this idea of the democratization of interpretation, and the idea that you can take this 8-line poem where historically people tend to read it a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? It's and then I'm that's not the only way to read this thing.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that I'm interested in, is working to find sort of the critical justification for allowing people to read things the way they want to read them, so that you can enjoy a poem as an uneducated person,
Right.
rather than some academy having to be you need to be trained. Obviously training helps, there's no doubt, but you can swim in a swimming pool and suck at swimming and still have a good time.
Yeah, you can dog paddle.
Yeah.
You can dog paddle, or you can be Michael Phelps. It just, you're still in the water and not drowning.
Yeah, and not drowning is really important in poetry. So.
Okay, well, that's great, Nick. I think that now if you would do us a favor and read some of your poems for us.
Okay, should I do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you
All
should.
right.